Thanks.
All right, everyone. Good evening. I'm going to keep letting people in, but it's 5:31, and we're going to honor your time, and we're going to go in. We've got a full agenda. We've got a lot of people registered, and we recognize that not everybody who's registered will be able to make it. And some people registered because we are recording the meeting. So let me give you that warning right off the bat. I have started the recording, and we'll make it available in the next few days. Thank you all so much for coming. My name is Carrie Tyson. I'm the executive director here at Portland Downtown, and we're grateful that we can partner with Portland Trails on this event. So Kara, if we've got you as co-host, and I welcome you to introduce yourself.
Hi, folks. I'm Kara Wildrick. I'm the executive director of Portland Trails. And we're a membership-based nonprofit that uses trails as tools for creating healthier communities. So we're psyched that you're here and eager to learn from you.
And here at Portland Downtown, our mission is to simulate a thriving, vibrant, sustainable downtown community. And we've been doing it for 29 years. And so we host a lot of convenings like this. And this is our first, I've been here about 8 months now. So a lot of you I've met, a lot of you I haven't had the pleasure yet, but the world is slowly returning to normal, and we're grateful for that. So those opportunities are going to proceed. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And anybody who can join us can just, I will continue to admit and keep my eye on the participants room here. So like many of you saw in our outreach and in some of the media in recent days, there have been some decisions on how the streets are being, the open streets versus those that were done last year. You probably saw the information about Exchange Streets. We're hosting this forum. We're not the decision makers. We're not departments of the city, neither Portland Trails nor Portland Downtown. We're both nonprofits, NGOs, non-governmental organizations. So we're here to take inputs. We're going to write a small, short report and share that with decision makers as well as those who participated. We'll make that available on our websites and through our various channels. But we're here for input of the citizens. Our focus geographically is downtown, but Kara, she works citywide and region-wide. So we're here not just to talk about downtown, but throughout the city. So we're glad for that. And we're here to see how we can help make business and people more healthy, both, like I said, in downtown and across the district. And we'll be sharing that information. Kara?
Yeah, thanks, Carrie. So when Portland Trails thinks about encouraging people to walk and cycle for the health of them and for nature, it requires a variety of types of infrastructure and conditions. And so parklets and open streets, like Sundays on the Boulevard and some of the open streets we had this summer or this season, are just two of the tools in that infrastructure toolbox. So we are definitely interested to hear from everybody about what worked, what didn't work so well, how we could make it better so that we can deploy these tools across Greater Portland, which is the area where we work. And just so you know, as you're entering this space of a public meeting, and since we aren't the city, we don't have to follow the usual public process, which is why you entered with music and hearing us talking about the things that like wearing slippers in the middle of a public Zoom meeting and other things that we're all doing in this weird world that we're living in right now. So we're going for something a little different than the standard public meeting. We're just wanting to create a space for collective listening and collaborative problem solving. Some things went well last year, some things didn't. The pandemic continues. We don't expect that this group is going to find consensus. And there are a whole bunch of stakeholders who couldn't make it tonight. Of course, as you know, there's a lot of other events, Zoom events tonight too. But the pandemic and the daylighting of racial injustice has led many folks in our community to be in survival mode. And when any of us are in survival mode, it's difficult to think about the collective good. So let's be gentle with ourselves and with each other. And tonight we'll focus on shared solutions for the health and safety of the community as our highest priority. And when we think about health of the community, we think about economic health, we think about physical health, as well as just our relationships, and that we haven't had time to connect in relation. So we invited you into this conversation so that we can get through another challenging pandemic year or season with as many of us thriving as possible.
Absolutely.
And maybe we'll actually come up with some solutions that work for the next 10 years. And wouldn't that be amazing?
So part of what we've done in advance of this session is we produced a survey. I'm about to put it in the chat. About half of the people registered here for the total meeting completed the survey. We have well over 80 people registered. I think we've got around 40 or so people here. I've gone ahead and put that in the chat in case you didn't get a chance to fill it out. But we'll be sending out that survey, and I'm going to give some highlights of that survey here in just a minute, showing the slideshow before we get into the full-on opportunity for sharing. So with that in mind, in fact, I think I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. One moment. Okay, so like we said, this is the Open Streets Forum, and thank you for being here. This is our agenda. Kara and I are only going to take up the first little bit to have a conversation with you. This is sort of what I sent out to you yesterday. And so just starting the conversation here, what are open streets? Well, they're just as they sound. They're programs that temporarily open streets to people by closing them for cars. That oftentimes isn't a 24-hour-a-day closure. There's oftentimes some period of time that's available for deliveries or that sort of thing. Or as we know from here in Portland, historically, where we've had this before, sometimes it's just a certain time period, like Sundays on the boulevard. So that's one of the things we want to put in your mind today. Part of the conversation is, as Kara said earlier, it's not an all or nothing as far as opportunities and solutions. Things can be, temporary, one day of the week, part of the weekend, some hours a day are things we should be talking about. And it's not just Portland who's done this, as we've seen across the states. Westbrook had a pretty successful open streets opportunity, as well as Rockland had a very interesting one that involved a lot of art and available, and they're still continuing, like we are, having conversations there. But we're also having this event tonight because we know that things are still in flux relative to the pandemic. As you may have seen in the news, and if you haven't, I've got the slide up here. It seems pretty unlikely that we'll see any big cruise ships this year. So that's a few hundred opportunities that come in with a large number of people. So it does have an economic impact. Of course, we're fortunate enough to know pretty far in advance, so that gives us a chance to change our marketing, to plan for staycations, for regional opportunities, vacationers, and that sort of thing as we continue to get the vaccine. And like I said, the COVID-19 has had an impact on our tourist season. As you can see here, just in a month, it was over a $400 million impact. And I mentioned this in the very beginning of our conversation, for those of you who joined us a little bit late, that it has been announced that Exchange Street won't close this year as an open street. But you can see from the article that Dana, Milk, and Wharf Streets on April 1 will likely be part of that, and Exchange won't. But the city is very interested, as noted here, in producing parklets as an opportunity and considering other streets. Again, to reiterate, for those of you who joined us a little late, I'm with Portland Downtown, Kara's with Portland Trails. So we're having this conversation relative to the entire city, not just downtown. And forgive me, I'm admitting people here as they come in, pop up on my screen. And parklets, just to give a little bit of a definition as to what they are, and you've seen them here throughout the city. There's those places that are in on-street parking that are allowed and become dining areas. And sometimes in other places, they become parks themselves. Here's an example from other parts of the country, just some other ways it's done. And here's some both Portland examples up in the upper left-hand corner and some examples from across the country. One of the interesting things we've seen in the pandemic is there have been companies that pop up that just do nothing but produce pre-made parklets. So you can buy them out there now as a kit. And it's something to be thinking about, and we can put you into contact with some of those if that's something you're considering. Of course, we need to make sure and work with the city and make sure that all proper regulations are followed. So that's something that we can have a conversation about. But as we saw with the Clam Festival being canceled early on, we know things are going to change. Gatherings like that are already being canceled. So we know we're seeing a shift. So just a few quick slides here, and I'll turn it back over to Karen. We'll open the floor. I'm going to quickly go through some of those survey questions that we talked about. And if you haven't filled it out, I did put it in the chat. We won't close it for a few days now. But a little more than about half of the people who responded to the survey were from the retail sector. 25-ish, 23% was from restaurant and bar. We're looking at about 8% from hotel and accommodations, 15 or so from professional service, and about 10% from the nonprofit. Those second and third questions were open-ended. We're going to have a little bit of an analysis in our report, so we don't have a lot of time. I'm not going to go through them here all, but I did put a little word cloud together for both of those, and this is for the second question, and this is for the third. And those were how have the pandemic impacted your outdoor dining, and what are ways to improve. And we're going to have a little bit of analysis of that, like I said, in the report. So with that in mind, I'm going to stop my speech, and I can either start the first poll we put together, or we can open the floor. Kara, I know there was some additional words that you had to share.
Let's hit them up with our first poll so they can press some buttons.
All right, launching poll. This is who you represent organizationally. Give this another minute or less than a minute, another 15 seconds or so. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Share results. So you can see what we have here tonight, about 13% with retail, 8% with dining or food, 16% residential, same with customers, 34% nonprofit, and 21% other.
Awesome, thank you. We will sprinkle some polls throughout our time together tonight, but I think we're ready to open the floor. You think, Carrie?
Yeah, so we want to hear from you. What we would ask you, we've got a good crowd, but not as many as a more manageable number than are registered, I think. But what we would ask you to do is to raise your hand with the hand raising tool in Zoom, and we'll call upon you just in the order that we receive. We're going to ask everybody limit themselves to about 60 seconds to have a comment and input. We are recording this, like I said, and we will try to get to everybody. So with that in mind, we're going to try and be quiet and listen. But it's always the first one that's the hardest. So.
Yeah, so you can think about, we have a year of experience together doing this kind of thing. Some things went well, maybe some things didn't go so well, maybe some things were terrible, some things were awesome. Whole range of different experiences from different perspectives that we need to make sure that we can take into consideration, make improvements where possible, implement different strategies or not implement strategies. So in thinking about that, what are some solutions that we can make this next outdoor season better during the pandemic?
I raised my hand. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, Gudrun.
Okay, hi. I'm for those of you who do not know me, I'm Gudrun Cobb, and I own Uncommon Paws at 21 Exchange Street now. Used to be 13. I'm a dog store, dog boutique, and pets, really, pet, dog, and cats. Thank you. So I was quite upset when I read the BDN the other day that the street would not be closed, Exchange Street in particular, because I am all for closing the street. It was fantastic. It was safe. A lot of customers commented, tourists last year, on how happy they were that the street is closed, and saw families walking around with kids, don't have to worry about cars, parking, all those things. I am lucky and grateful that my business was pretty much pandemic proof, even though I had to shut down for 2.5 months, or I should say I chose to shut down for 2.5 months. It did not afterwards hurt my business. I, being European anyway, a lot of streets in Europe are closed permanently. In my hometown, for instance, for shopping, it's a wonderful thing because you can just stroll and have fun and meet friends and so on. And I know it's a pandemic year, so it's all different, but I absolutely sympathize with all the restaurants anywhere that are hurting. um, I think the park parklets are a great idea. um, I wish they could be beautified a little more. um, because it does remind me of a Berlin Wall. When I first saw the barriers going up at the top of Exchange Street, I was like, whoa, that looks like the Berlin Wall in the making. So, gray asphalt, it was never very pretty. So to make a long story longer, I am absolutely for closing the street. It was wonderful for the business. It was wonderful for the tourists and the people that did come out. It was very safe. So, so that's my 5 cents.
Thank you, Gudrun.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
Grace. Grace, do you have
Great.
your hand up?
Oh, hi. So my name is Grace. I guess I would classify myself more on the customer end, someone who might be like appreciating the streets being open and stopping in a restaurant or a store. And so yeah, I really wanted to second that concept. That I was also really disappointed when I found out that they were going to be closing Exchange Street, because I thought that was one of the best streets that was open, especially because like you don't really need to like drive down it or go down at all to really get anywhere in the city. So I was actually really surprised that that was the one that they chose to close. Um, and from like a customer point of view, I like when I would be walking through Portland, I would totally just decide to go down Exchange Street just because that it was open last summer. And I'm a little curious about why some restaurants and businesses would blame the street being open on doing poorly. There seems to me to be like no way to differentiate between losing business from the pandemic and potentially losing it from the street being closed to traffic. So I was a little like skeptical of a lot of those claims, and if anything, thought that it would help businesses. And I have some, I guess, some anecdotal evidence from that, although I can't speak from every business there. So I guess I don't really have any complaints about open streets. I would like to definitely see more of it. I don't know if anyone here, I'm sure some of you have been to Burlington, where they have Church Street that is open. And in that city, like that's where all the best restaurants and businesses are, because those are the streets people are going down. And I was really surprised that Portland took the route that, for some reason, thinking that cars parked on that street are like gonna give them more customers. Like cars can't order food or go into a store, but people can, and people walking down the streets can do that. So definitely thumbs up for keeping streets open. No complaints about what I've seen so far. I guess it just like to see more of it, and was disappointed that they decided to reopen Exchange Street.
Thank you, Grace. I'm looking for hands. Is that one from you, Steve? Steve, I think you're talking, but you're muted.
There we go. Hear me now? Okay. The question about closing Exchange Street, you have to realize there's two sections, the upper and lower part. The upper part, closing it, gave a lot of different people problems. For us, running Temple Street Garage, the large issue is we lost half of the ability to get in and out of Temple Street Garage, which is the primary parking facility for that part of the city. When everyone starts coming back, if we have only half the capacity to get people in and out, it's going to cause a massive traffic problem, both inside the garage and on Temple Street. Just the closing we had during pandemic as it is, we got a lot of complaints from our parking customers. The other thing is we talk about, what's going on at the street level, but above the street, there's offices, but more in particular, there's residentials. And they had a lot of issues about getting in and out. I mean, just think about how do you get in to get your groceries? I mean, as it is, they're coming in and they're hauling them up several flights of stairs, but now they got to haul them from a block or more away before they start the stairs. I heard a fair amount of complaints about that because we have several of the abutting buildings around us have residents upstairs. And there was also some problems early on with, deliveries, UPS and people like that getting in and out. I mean, that got cleaned up over the first few weeks, but still on a longer term. And, Burlington's great and all, but that was a long-term planned project. And that's the issue here. The city's trying to respond like they did initially for this season, but we don't have time to think about all the intricacies and talking to everybody about how are you going to deal with this building, with its tenants? How are you going to deal with this? So I think temporarily right now of reopening at least the upper part Exchange Street is necessary for a lot of the folks on that section. It helped the restaurants on there, but I heard from retailers, it didn't help them because they couldn't do curbside pickup. That was another issue. I mean, some folks, like the lady talked earlier, it didn't hurt her business, but some of the ones in Upper Exchange Street couldn't do curbside pickup, and that was a problem for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Teresa, I saw you had your hand raised.
I think Steve just answered a couple of my questions. I'm not in the downtown area, and I went a few times to go downtown this summer, but I'm out in Woodford's Corner. And I guess part of it is I'm really curious about how much data was collected about like the kinds of complaints or concerns that would make people not want open streets. And was there data collected by those who were not happy about it or during the year?
I do know there were 2 surveys we helped the city push out. So there has been some data collection done, yes.
Yeah. And I guess too, the other question would be, was it considered, and again, I feel like it might be, maybe I'm just out of the loop, but maybe was it considered to do timed closing of Exchange Street versus all day closing, or just seems to me there would be peak hours where closing that street would be really the best result. And then hours where it would just be a hassle for those not in those peak hours. So.
I think that's part of the conversation. Gudrun, I see your hand.
Yes, a couple more comments. And to Teresa's point, I think opening the open street, possibly on weekends. And that might also help those people that live on the upper floors of Upper Exchange or Lower Exchange or whatever. I mean, that would be helpful already. But also to the point of, how much data was collected from those people that for lack of a better word, bitched the most about the street closure. For instance, I moved into the former paper patch and he closed his business. Well, he was ready to retire before the pandemic, and the pandemic just gave him a reason. So even though his comment was taken like, oh yeah, my God, we can't close Exchange Street again. Well, he was ready to retire. And I know that there were several other business owners that had really loud voices in being against it, but in the end, their business was huge. So, they kind of put the cart before the horse. I mean, we were worried as well, obviously, and it turned out just fine for us. So I think maybe a good compromise. Maybe let's do, close it on weekends, and that would help the restaurants as well, I think. So there, I wanted to add that.
Thank you.
I can also add that from the survey that half of the registrants filled out, which we would love for the rest of you to fill out and Carrie put into the chat, areas that could be improved. We had the most popular or the most frequent, I should say, was unfriendly or imposing barricades, which was cited by 25% of respondents. Curbside pickup challenges, especially for people with physical limitations or products, retailers that sold products that were not easy to move a distance, basically. The third most common was delivery challenges. It did seem like most of those commenters suggested that they were resolved over the course of the time. And then a couple of businesses had employee parking challenges, either completely cut off or reduced or had to figure out other accommodations. So that's what was stated most frequently in that survey.
Me again, sorry. I do feel that some accommodations from the city, and I don't want to talk about, I mean, there are several garages there, but possibly, I mean, could they afford to lower the price for if we close the street on a weekend, lower the price for parking possibly? I don't even know what it costs hourly to park, but I'm sure it's not all that cheap. Maybe that was a deterrent to some people, or they didn't like it, but offer more possibilities for parking for people.
Catherine, you have your hand raised. Kat?
Hi, just a quick question. The decision to not include exchange in the Open Streets project, is that something that is amendable in some way, or is that just kind of like a hard decision?
I don't know that I have the answer to that. We're here to take, the public input, and we're going to produce a report and share that with city leaders. I know that the article in the paper said they're open to other streets, and there are those 3 streets I mentioned, Jana, Wharf and Milk, if I'm going off the top. Yep, I got that right. That will be utilized. So it seems like they're open to some creative solutions. I've always found them good to work with. So more as we continue to progress.
Hey, Carrie, should we hit them up with another poll?
I think so. One moment. Let me hit the second poll question here.
In fact, the next 2 might be quite relevant to the conversation so far.
One. Oh, here I see how to do this. Here we go. Okay, this poll question. How often does your non-adjacent parking determine your shopping habit? Let's give everyone 30 seconds or so.
We should have some good game music going in the background.
There's a new Jeopardy guest host this week. It's the guy that's the executive producer. And then Aaron Rodgers, I think, is coming up in about 4 weeks, for those of you who are Packers fans. So I'm going to give it about 5 more seconds.
Sorry, we couldn't have one of them here tonight for us.
Okay, 3, 2, 1. Share results. Okay, hopefully you can see that. It's about 10% is the leader by far. So with looks like 31 to 40 coming in a distant second place. So looks like we have a group of people who are willing to move around a little bit. So when my background is in this downtown work, and we used to always say, if you don't have a parking problem, then you have a parking problem. So that's I know we've got some parking folks on here, so that's a rabbit hole we could go pretty far down.
How about the next poll? Because that also relates to what came up already.
All right, one moment. Okay, there we go. Was delivery to your home or business adversely impacted by open streets?
Suppose we should have an
I
NA.
was going to say, do about 10 more seconds. I feel like they should change the Jeopardy theme just a little bit in its arrangement when they settle on a new host. But I have lots of thoughts on Jeopardy. We'll save that for the next meeting. Okay, I'm about 2 more seconds in the poll.
That's the 6:30 meeting?
That's the 6:30 meeting, right before the governor's state of the budget. We're in the subject. So a strong 88% was not impacted.
So in thinking through some of those challenges that were listed in our survey, the unfriendly imposing barricades, curbside pickup challenges, especially for those with physical limitations or products that were physically challenging to move, delivery challenges, and employee parking challenges. Any suggestions from this crowd on how we might resolve some of those for future?
David, see your hand.
Hi, David Packard. I work with a property management company, PK Realty, and I'm also on the board of Portland Downtown. I should disclose that as well. But so this is much more of a long-term hopeful solution. But my sister used to live in a town in Germany that had basically resident-only streets. So you had little pylon barriers that would go. That's not but bollards basically that would rise or lower depending on the tag that you had in your car. And obviously that's a big capital improvement and moonshot kind of dreamy thing. But having that kind of controlled access onto streets for timing or at, you could open them to the general public, but also to residents only during certain hours as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, David. Anyone else? Thoughts on open streets and parking? I'm going to try and relaunch this poll just for, but I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do it just for those who live downtown. The technology is a little hard to do both at once. Give me a minute here.
One thing I would just add is it was pretty impressive how the city of Portland staff responded to a need to a crisis situation. Municipalities aren't always known for being nimble, and I think that the city did an incredible job, as did Westbrook and other communities nearby. So if things didn't get worked out perfectly the first time, I'm sure there will be improvements, and I'm sure City Hall was running at about 1,000 miles an hour for so many months and just trying to problem solve so many things. So just want to give a shout out that the creative thinking and problem solving was really incredible.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Will, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, so I personally, like some other people who have spoken this summer, really loved getting out on Exchange Street and just walking down the middle of the street and shopping for books. And you know, the spontaneity of walking is a magical thing and kind of great for the businesses along that street. But hearing some of the concerns about like curbside pickup and that sort of thing, and potentially the need for some residents to get through, I wonder if it's worth thinking about alternative configurations that aren't just a, you know, completely open or completely given back to cars. And I think of my hometown in New Jersey, which has a sort of similar street with a lane of parking on either side and then one lane in each direction. And they've permanently, this started out temporary because of COVID, but they made it permanent recently with massive public support. They turned it into the parking on each side was given over to restaurants and just public space, and is barricaded from the rest of the roadway. And then the roadway itself, instead of being two-way, it's a one-way with a smaller lane on the side that people can pull into for curbside pickup. And so I thought that was a great compromise if businesses really are struggling with the lack of curbside pickup space, that we could sort of, you know, give the street back to pedestrians a bit and allow for a little bit more of that pedestrian spontaneity and allow for restaurants to expand outdoors, while at the same time sort of, you know, giving ground on the need for curbside pickup and for some vehicles to get through all day long.
Thank you, Will. Can you tell me again what town in New Jersey that is, just in case in the report we want to reference it?
Yeah, I'll try to find a good link to a news article about it or something, but Princeton, New Jersey, and this street is Witherspoon Street. I'll see if I can find a picture of it to put in the chat or something. It was a really great solution.
Thank you. John, I see your hand.
Yeah, thank you. Just one comment. I heard twice that it was mentioned employees had a hard time finding parking during the pandemic. I'm just kind of surprised to hear that, because most every garage had occupancy available. I mean, I think most of them were running at about maybe 20%. So there's ample parking available from last March, actually through today. Even today, any one of the garages is monthly parking available. So I don't know where they're looking for the parking. We still have the surface lot, Angelo's Acre, and the Tame Street lots available. Angelo's Acre is $5 a day. Tame Street's 10. So just thought I'd bring that up there.
Thank you, John. I see Claudette, your hand is up next.
Yes, I was thinking about Andy Rooney, who used to be on 60 Minutes. And he had this wonderful thing about why is it that in the suburbs, people will circle a parking lot to get as close to a door as they can. Whereas in the city, they're happy to park 10 blocks away and walk to where they need to go. And I think part of that philosophy applies here. And number two, if you think about Middle Street between India and Franklin, they've been able to accommodate 6 restaurants and 2 parking lots with barriers and traffic going in one direction only. It's been a great solution. I hope it lasts. And I think it was Gudrun's idea about, you know, it looking like you're facing the Berlin Wall. That was my first reaction, like these great concrete barriers. But once I learned from the owner of a restaurant on Middle Street that they were suffering, and that was the least expensive option available to them. That's what they had to go for. However, walking around the old port, I remember seeing a great concrete barrier with a plaque on it with the orange and white stripes and a sign saying no entry. Like, you know, who's going to go through a gray concrete barrier? Do you need all this other stuff on it? And maybe for businesses that can't afford to do a beautiful aesthetic extension of their restaurant or whatever, maybe Mecca art students could be corralled to volunteer and even just throw a coat of paint on them. You know, that would be a big help. So anyway, that's what I have to say. And I am all for opening, I keep forgetting if it's opening or opening streets to pedestrians as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudette. Anybody else? We've got about 15 minutes left, scheduled for an hour, but I don't know anybody who's ever been upset that a meeting ended early.
How about our final poll, which starts to get at some of the outcomes that we're looking to have as a result of whatever interventions we create?
I can do that right now. There we go. What outcomes just are you most eager to address through the types of intervention? Give it about 10 more seconds. I didn't do my Jeopardy music this time. I know you're all sad about it. Okay, 2, 1. I'm gonna end it. Make a choice. Share the results here. Strong, all of the above there. Half at people-centered public places, good 38% at equitable, vibrant public space, and 32 at healthy businesses.
Looks like we have a new hand raised. Amy?
I just wanted to share from the chat. I was just kind of watching. It was just a little bit of conversation that people weren't sharing, but just some shout out for some areas that are doing this well and are really known for their closed streets. In Burlington, the Church Street shopping area, and in Providence, the Westminster Street shopping area. So I just noted those and wanted to bring those to everyone's attention.
Don't.
Sorry, I'm having technical difficulties. I can't find that button to raise the hand, so went old school. I know talking with someone from the city, one of the things that they noted was going into this again, it would be great to have sort of a set list of like, is there a certain neon yellow that we need to use to make them safety color the barriers for parklets? Are there a set of rules and regulations? And maybe those exist and I'm unaware of them because my business is not affected by open streets. But just flagging that I think more information of what are the limitations, what are the conditions for different parklet situations, I think was also something that I had heard some interest about. And since we hadn't really touched on parklets much, I just wanted to mention that to the group.
Thank you. Yeah, I think one of the things I would say is that there aren't a lot of positives out of COVID, but I thought the streets were extremely vibrant last year, and seeing people dining across, on the sidewalks, in parklets, really made it a lively place to be, whether the street was open or closed, to use the terminology. And I love that, and I'm glad to see that, and I look forward to that. I enjoyed it myself. I took advantage of it quite a bit. So I hope it's doubled and tripled about the number of places that are taking advantage of that. Got about 15, still about 13, 14 minutes left. If there are any other hands, we want to get everybody to get a chance to be heard. But if not, we certainly recognize Claudette. I see your hand again.
Yes, I remember reading an article pre-COVID about restaurants, especially begging for sidewalk space to serve meals, because in many cases it was the difference between making it or not. And there was a lot of competition going on among restaurants between those that could serve outside and those that could not. And the city, I believe, opened up a lot more spaces for these restaurants. And I think that alone stands as a testament about why open streets are a good idea. And I think there is a way to make the open street concept adapt to various neighborhoods, where some neighborhoods need a lot of deliveries. So let's limit the open space time in those, but still make it available to the businesses at their peak demand hours. So maybe deliveries can happen between 5 a.m. and 1 p.m., which is a huge window. And I think there are a lot of ways to look at this, and it can work if we put our minds to it and get creative and answer the needs of various establishments, residents, etc. Okay, if your neighborhood, your street is going to be closed or open on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, do your groceries on Thursday.
Yeah.
I think people can adapt to make the entire community more vibrant, more flexible, and more appealing. Especially
we're not muted. Yeah.
Anyway, that's it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Claudette. Just a few. Just a few more minutes. Is there other comments? Happy to keep the floor open. Noelle, I see your hand. And then Eden, you'll be next.
Can you hear me? Okay. My name is Noelle Tagnella. I own Andiamo Salon on Exchange Street since 2009. And I'm going to tell you all that this street closure from last year was extremely detrimental. I had tons of complaints from my clients. I had people who had disabilities, elderly, people who were pregnant, people that didn't feel like walking blocks in the rain or paying, I don't know, $6 an hour to park in the garage. I park in Temple Street Garage as a monthly parker, and I couldn't get in and out of the back entrance. I mean, it was just a constant issue. So I'm not sure if this street closure conversation to keep it open would be only because of due to COVID and how wonderful it was being closed. But I can tell you that with it being closed, it was awful for me and awful for a lot of people. And we lost a ton of parking, and like just accessibility to get in and out of the road was just a huge pain for everybody, and it was awful. So I know there's a lot of positivity about everyone can walk down there, but there's 37 million plus tourists that come to the state of Maine every year to visit. I don't know where we're thinking that everyone's going to park and visit the city if there's streets are closed down. Restaurants are not an essential business, in my opinion. You can go to the grocery store and get your groceries. Restaurants have been allowed to be open this entire time. I was forced to shut down for over a month and lose business. That was awful. Restaurants can use, the street, and they can do takeout. They were able to work the entire time. They're able to serve inside if they so choose. I wasn't allowed to do any of that. So I really feel like that wasn't fair and that wasn't right. No one polled me. No one asked me my opinion. No one, asked me like how detrimental that was. And I have a very successful business down there and have been down there a really long time. So for me, like if you want to get outside and you want to walk down Exchange Street, and you want to enjoy it like every summer, like everyone's doing, then enjoy it. But I don't understand why it would be necessary to close the street in the heart of the business district and have that happening. So.
Thank you. That's why we're having tonight's forum. We want every voice to be heard. That's important that's what we're here for tonight. So thank you. Eden, you're next.
Hi, my experience is the exact opposite. So I'm sorry it was so hard for you. I'm at 10 Exchange and was not comfortable opening and having people inside my shop in June. I can't really disinfect leather goods. So it was wonderful to me to have a table on the sidewalk and have all these people coming through. And when I'm a tourist, I like to go to the pedestrian only areas. And I thought having all of Exchange Street open was sort of wonderful for a thoroughfare with strollers and dogs and just room for everybody, because when there are cars on Exchange Street, there's no room on the sidewalk. There's a lot of sidewalk signs and it's really tight and congested. So I'd love to look at compromises for, Friday, Saturday, Sunday would be great, or just afternoons or something. Because I think it's always a draw to have a pedestrian only area. So I'd love a compromise that worked for everybody. Thanks.
Thank you.
I just want to say that I don't think dogs and strollers are actually bringing money to the downtown area. And I really feel like if this is just something like temporary, I don't understand why, when we have like a vaccine out and everyone's getting out and about, why we would even consider closing the street for those types of reasons when we have plenty of parks and other ample spaces for people to go walking if that's what they feel like doing.
Thank you. Claudette, is that still your hand raised, or is that from previously? I think that may be.
That's from previous.
Okay.
Yep.
I can manually lower it.
All right.
Gudrun, is that from previously or is that current?
No, it's current.
Okay.
Couple of things. When Exchange Street, Lower Exchange was closed, we didn't have an issue with deliveries because UPS and FedEx could access it. And yes, at first in the morning, and first it was a little bit weird. And, the FedEx guy was really sweating because he had a lot of deliveries and he was hauling it up and down the street all the time. But also during that time, I moved my store from number 13 Exchange to 21 and had a shitload of deliveries to the new store. And I mean, it worked all just fine. I would love for the city to consider possibly Friday, Saturday, Sunday closure to kind of compromise. And
maybe just lower Exchange.
Yeah, maybe just lower Exchange. It was really very, very good to have that. And it builds community. And I know we're in COVID, so we can't really all, get together and have chats and stuff like that, at least not without masks. The other thing is, Carrie, what are we doing with what you're gathering here today? Can you get into that again? That's my final question.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're in the last 5 minutes, so Kara and I can wrap it up unless there's any burning things that hadn't been said. I'll start real quickly and I'll let Kara add too. We are going to be producing a report. It'll be short, 3 to 5 pages is what we're talking about. A modest piece that's very readable, has some graphics in it that'll be an accounting of the conversations along with some best practices, some suggestions, and that sort of, including our survey results. It'll be in a little more granular level. And we'll be producing, and we'll be sharing that both on both of our websites as partners here, and with everybody who registered, and city leaders. So Kara, is there other information you want to add?
Yeah, I guess I would just say that I think what we're hearing through the survey and as well as tonight is just that different businesses and different types of customers have different needs and different challenges to open streets or closed streets or the sidewalks or accessibility. I know the city did a great job trying to figure out how can you still make sure that wheelchairs can get through, and how do we make sure that all of our community members can benefit. And we did not, we don't expect that there will be even consensus on any of these solutions. And I think the city, as well as the local nonprofit partners, are trying to figure out the best good for the most people. And in a rush in spring, it wasn't necessarily the perfect solutions, but it was a nice effort, and we'll see how we can build on that to make it better for even more people. And there will be decisions that are made for very practical reasons, like staffing ability to take up and put down barricades or not. So lots of practical decisions thrown in the mix in a time when obviously money is much tighter than normal. So for everyone. So we will keep the conversation going. The survey is in the chat. If you didn't fill out the survey and you want to add some more, or heck, even if you filled it out and you have new and different thoughts, or you think, I didn't say that quite right, just throw it in there again. We're totally open to that.
So finally, we thank you all for being here tonight. You care about your city, and that matters a lot. You care enough to spend your evening with us and to have strong opinions on the future of your city, and that makes you a citizen. That's part of being a strong citizen. So we thank you for that, and we thank you for partnering with our organizations, and we look forward to continuing to work with you throughout the summer and far beyond. And it won't be too long when we can all sit down at a table again together. So I look forward to that opportunity. So thank you all, and we'll be in touch. Have a great evening.